Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Kevin and this is where I make minis. I have been missing because I got sick last month and then when I got better, I got sick with something else, but I'm better now. I am good to go. I'm back to making videos. I'm back to making miniatures. And it's about time we get back to working on the cardboard castle because this is something that I've been wanting to finish up. I feel like I've been working on it forever now and I just need to finish it. And we still have a lot to do in here. We still have a lot to do. I can show you up close when we start working on it, but I still need to do the stained glass in the back. I still need to do the like carpet thing that goes, I don't know what it is really, a carpet? You'll see. The tapestries, the things that go on the tables, the moss and the broken downness. I'm gonna have a whole video where I just age everything because it's supposed to be an abandoned castle. And yeah, there's a lot to do. A lot to do on this project still. This week I'm going to be working on the tapestries and the carpet, so let's go ahead and just talk about what I mean by carpet and tapestries. I went to Joann's the other day because they were having a sale and I found two things I want to use. To make the tapestries, I was trying to do as many things as I could at home without buying things, but there was just a couple things I knew I was gonna have to buy. So I bought this paper so I could print out some kind of medieval tapestry that I'm going to age and hang on the walls, maybe put one on the ground that like it fell because it's aged. We'll see, but I bought this. I don't remember how much I paid for it. I'll look it up and then I'll add up the total like I was doing before so you know how much money I spent on the project so far.
In the long run, I actually don't end up using this. You'll see later that I decided that this stuff was too expensive and I wanted to try and keep this cheap, so I used something I had around the house.
I got this ribbon from Joann's and I don't know if this is gonna work because it was in their Christmas section and it was on, like, it was really cheap. There's a wire in it so I can angle it how I want. However, I think it might be too thin. I wanted the double thickness. I wanted it to have this intricate gold detail around the edge and they only had it in this size, so I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. I'm gonna play around with it because I honestly don't know if this is gonna take on any kind of aging either because of the material it is. But what I'm gonna do is I want to run this down the center of the room to look like a rug type thing. I can see it in my mind and I think it'll make sense once I start working on it. And then we're gonna do this and we're gonna go ahead and make a rug and tapestries, a rug-ish thing. You'll see, and tapestries. So that's what we're going to work on this week, so turn around the camera and let's get started.
Starting out, I wanted to see how I could distress this ribbon because I wasn't sure with the material it was if it would actually absorb any kind of color or anything I put into it. So I got some water and some black paint and some other like brown paint and just a lot of different stuff to try and age it to see if I could get it to look weathered and old. At first I didn't think that it was actually doing anything because the gold was still very vibrant and I thought the red was still vibrant, but then I grabbed the original roll and I held it up next to itself to see is it actually taking on any of the weathering, and it was taking on some of the color. I just knew that what I was doing was not enough and I was gonna have to put a lot more paint and a lot more effort into this because this ribbon is really good quality for how cheap it was. I went ahead and got a lot of paint out and I added just the tiniest bit of water and I used really heavy black paint rather than really diluted. At first I was trying to do just a little bit of black paint and a lot of water and it wasn't working, so I reversed, and we're all good now. It worked. After weathering with the paint, I decided to try and see what it would look like if I shredded it a little bit because these are supposed to be aged and old, like they've been sitting for, you know, maybe 100 or 200 years. And I wanted to see how they ripped and shredded if I cut them, if I pulled them apart, which they're very strong. Again, you know, obviously not sponsored by this ribbon, but I feel like I should be because I'm really talking it up. This ribbon was really well made. But it did shred well. It took a little strength. At this point, I was still trying to figure out if I could use this as the carpet rather than the tapestry, which is what I end up doing. And I realized very quickly that it was way too skinny. It barely fit the tables on top of it. And I couldn't double it up the way I wanted without it looking strange. I tried it off camera. So I knew that doing this, it wasn't gonna work. So instead, I had to look around my house and find something else out of my fabric stash that I could use. So I looked at my fabric stash and found this orange fabric. And on one side, it's very vibrant, but on the other side, which is what I'm showing, it was more muted. It was still too bright, and this is actually an upholstery fabric that I had left over from some project in my house. I wanted to see how dark I could get it and how dreary and old I could get it because I thought it could be a fun pop of color without being too bright if I could get it to be more watered down and grungy looking. I noticed when aging this that the fabric was woven together, so I thought maybe if I took my tweezers, I could kind of fray the edges to make it look like the edge of a carpet. And I found out very quickly that I was correct, and I was very excited that it does start to look like a carpet if you take some of the lines of fabric out because of the way it's woven. So I did that on a tester piece to make sure that it would look good in the end when I made it on the big one. Here, I'm just testing out the size of the fabric and marking it where I wanted to cut it and figure out how I wanted to be configured inside of the room. After that, I tried showing what it was going to look like once I had the aged in fabric and was just kind of trying to show you an idea of hopefully what it will look like in the end. I won't make you sit through the entire process of aging this, but just know I spent about 10 minutes roughly trying to get the colors on this to be darker so that way it looked like it was old and grungy and worn out, because again, it's supposed to have sat in this castle for, 100 years or something. And the orange was a little too vibrant and I had to muddy it down. This did end up getting stuff all over my desk, so just be careful if you're going to do something like this. And make sure you put down a paper towel. I did that at a later point in this process, but it still got everywhere. So just be careful if you're doing this. My plan here is to use this dowel to wrap the tapestry around so that way it will look as if it's hanging on the wall. And I'm going to use this little cord here to look like ropes hanging up from the wall. I held the roll of ribbon up inside the castle so I could get an idea of how long I wanted them to be. I knew I wanted them to be, aged and ripped up, so the length didn't necessarily matter in the long run, but I wanted a vague idea of how long they should be. After I cut the right length, or vaguely the right length, I cut them a little bit longer just in case, because I could always shorten them. You can't make them longer again. I started to age them, and this material is not silk, obviously, because it's cheap, but it's like a material that's slippery, and it absorbed the water a little bit. But again, I put down a paper towel eventually to kind of try and soak up some of the liquid. When it came time to finish the rug up, I started by pulling out the strings along the edge of the weave to add the little bit of fringe on both sides of the carpet. This was actually pretty easy to do. It just took a little bit of time to get one going, but once it started to unravel, it went all the way down. You just have to grab it with the tweezers. But once the fringe was done, I thought it looked a little too neat, so I went in with my X-Acto knife and a pair of scissors, so that way I could rough it up a little bit, so that way it would look more aged and old. This is what the ribbon tapestry looked like once I was done aging it compared to the original, because I felt like when you looked at it, I mean, you can see that it's aged, but I was like, is it aged, So I wanted to compare the two to really show how different they looked. After I was done with the aging, I painted the dowel rod to be a darker color, and I wrapped it around the top of it. The wire that was inside the ribbon kind of helped hold it, but the glue is really obviously what's going to hold it on long term.
Okay, this light is very harsh. There we go, that's a little bit better. So basically what I did is I went ahead and, I don't know how much I showed you already on camera, but I went ahead and finished these off and I cut these. These do have a little bit of wire in them, so that way I can kind of pose them however I'd like. And I went ahead and completed the dirty rug. What I need to do now though is I need to age these. I need to age both of them. I say that and you're looking at this like, isn't that already aged? But what I need to do is I need to rip it up. I need to make it look all like ripped throughout. One of these I think I'm gonna have slightly hanging still, and the other one's gonna be crumpled up on the ground. However, I've not officially decided on that yet. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and start ripping up this, doing the holes and stuff in the middle, because I think that once this is complete, I'm going to do the water and glue. I'm looking at the castle next to me. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the water and glue step, so that way I can have this down and just have it be permanently installed and move on to the next thing. I'm almost done. My dog's walking around over here. I'm almost done with what I'm planning on doing with this video, which is just finishing these up and finishing this up. And yeah, it just feels like a lot to go still. I have a lot to do before this castle's done, but I'm gonna go ahead and get ripping. My dog just jumped up behind me. He has his own little chair in here. He loves it, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started on ripping this up and we're gonna get that installed.
While waiting on the tapestries to dry, I decided to start roughing up the rug a little bit. It was already weathered, but I needed it to be ripped up as well. And I tried starting with just the tweezers and kind of pulling it apart, but the middle of this is like a really strong weave because it's meant for upholstery. So I had to take in my X-Acto knife and kind of slice it and then pull it apart with the tweezers. In the end, I like how it ended up looking. This took me probably over 10 minutes, even though it's not that big of a piece of fabric, to get it to look to the liking of what I thought it needed to look like to be in hundreds-year-old abandoned castle. After I was done ripping it up and adding all the aging that I liked, here it is, and I wanted to show you what it looked like with the tables on it before I actually put it into the room box or cardboard castle. I also pulled out a Playmobil figure because this is 1/24 scale, and if you did not know, they are also 1/24 scale Playmobiles, and I wanted to just make sure it looked okay and to see what it would look like with the character on it. Before gluing it down, I wanted to make sure that it fit in still and everything looked good, and I also just wanted to put it in and see what it looked like with this really dramatic lighting, because dramatic lighting makes every miniature look better, obviously. To really get the rug to lay the way I wanted to, I followed the Bentley House Minis tutorial on how to get fabric to lay down, which I follow every time I need to do fabric because honestly it's just like the perfect way in my opinion to get fabric to lay down. Now because this was a thicker woven material that's meant for upholstery, I had to use more glue than water ratio than I normally do. What I did is I added a bunch of water, a bunch of glue to this yogurt container, and I just kind of let it soak in there because it really needed to absorb as much glue as possible. And I didn't care if it got kind of dirty and gross looking because it was aged anyway. In the end, I had to use some hot glue to get it to adhere a little bit to the bottom of the castle, and I had to use my 1, 2, 3 blocks to get the layers of the steps to actually show through. But overall, in the end, I got it to stick, and I like the way it ended up looking. Off camera, for one of the ribbons, I kind of folded it together to look like it had fallen to the ground and pooled there like that, because I imagined these wouldn't hold up forever. One of them would fall over, so I pulled it up and made it look like it had just given up one day and fallen to the ground. We can all relate to that. The second ribbon tapestry I wanted to look like, time had taken its toll on this one as well. But this one I wanted to still be hanging up on the wall, so I just went ahead and took my X-Acto knife and kind of shredded it to pieces to look like maybe over time it had just unraveled and it just had lost its integrity, but it still managed to stay hanging up on the wall. You can't really see great from this angle, but what I wanted to do is, because I wanted it to look like it was still hanging up on the wall, I needed to turn the cardboard castle to the side so that way while it was gluing, it was flat on the ground and gravity didn't pull it down, because I wasn't super confident that it wouldn't fall while it was gluing. And so I put the glue down, put a 1, 2, 3 block on top of it to try and flatten it a little bit, just so it would stay on the wall once I turned it right side up. Here it is once it's dried and hanging up, no problems, no gravity, worrying about things. That didn't make any sense, but you know what I'm saying. I wasn't worried about gravity anymore. It was all dry. And then also you can see that I put the other one down over here. I hadn't glued it down yet, but shortly after this clip, I glued it with some hot glue and some tacky glue to just have a nice hold on the bottom. After everything was nice and glued in, I just wanted to give some nice shots of what it looks like now that these parts are done. The tapestry and the rug are done, they're all aged, and they are permanently affixed inside the room. And for one last shot, I went ahead and put the benches and the tables in so you can see a full scope of everything that's been done with this room so far. Overall, I love it. I love the way it's looking, and I'm excited to keep going with it.
This video's taken a lot longer than it was originally supposed to take to go up, and that is because I ended up getting sick again. I got the big sickness that's been going around for years now, again. And I got sick 3 times in the last 2 months. Twice with the same thing and once with a different thing. I do have a chronic illness, which does come up occasionally. But that, 2 of those 3 were not that, so that was cool. But you know what? I'm still dealing with the sickness that's been going around for a few years, but I'm feeling a little bit better, which is how I managed to finish this today. I'm draped over it right now. You can't really see, I showed you in that clip, it's a little dark in here. I really need to figure out lighting in here. But I showed you the clip that had this in there. One of the things I'm struggling with is that I feel like there's a lot of vertical space without anything to fill it up. So I was talking to my partner, and I think that I'm gonna try and make some kind of medieval chandelier thing. I originally had the idea for a chandelier, but then I thought I was going to axe it out, but then I thought maybe it would look good with the, I thought it was going to take away from the stained glass window. But I think that if it's like dangling kind of, like maybe one of the chains is given out, that it will look good with the stained glass window. It won't block it too much. And I got this stuff at Michael's in the clearance section, and it's like these little tiny chains. And I think I'm gonna use this to make the chandelier, but let me know what you all think in the comments, because maybe you have a better idea. I still have a lot to do. I still have the stained glass window. I still have all the moss and ivy that needs to be added in. I still have, what else needs to be added in? I think I wanna do some like broken plates maybe. I also need to age the tables and the benches to make them look like they've been in here a while and that they're decaying along with the room. Not really sure how to go about that. I think I want one of the tables to be collapsing in the middle, but I don't know what that'll look like. So I need to look that up, figure that out. There's a lot to do still on this project. I felt like I was getting really close. I was like, okay, maybe I'm getting closer to finishing this. And I'm like, no, I'm not, because I haven't even done the outside of this. And when I originally first started this project, I had the calyx shelves from IKEA, and I wanted to put this in one of the cubes. I have since gotten rid of those because I moved across country. I have an updated idea for this, but I don't want to say it yet. What I'm gonna do around the whole outside, because the whole outside is undone, but I have an idea for what it's gonna look like when it's done, like what I'm gonna do with it. But if you have any suggestions for what I can do on the inside with the chandelier, or just things maybe I can add to this scene to bulk it up a little bit, I think the chandelier is a good idea though. But you let me know. Let me know if you think it's gonna take away from the stained glass or not. Forgive the way I look again. I'm sick. I wish I wasn't. Anyway, that's all for this week. I have a bunch of videos planned out. I was supposed to be done with the cardboard castle by now, but then I got sick multiple times and it got delayed multiple times. So hopefully that'll be done soon and then we can move on in the new year. I have so many new projects, so many exciting things I think that you'll all like, so we'll see. If you like me or you like miniatures, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and the like button because it really helps me out in the algorithm stuff. And I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!